The sun rose gently over the small, bustling city, casting golden rays on its quiet streets. It was a typical Monday morning, and people were beginning their day with routines that had become second nature. Among them was 14-year-old Maya Johnson, a bright and cheerful high school student who always carried her books neatly stacked in her backpack. With dreams of becoming an engineer one day, Maya worked hard at school and took pride in being respectful to everyone she met. Maya lived with her mother, Angela Johnson, who served as the city's beloved mayor. Angela was known for her dedication to improving the community, fighting for equality, and ensuring justice for all citizens. Despite her busy schedule, Angela made sure to spend quality time with Maya, teaching her important life lessons about fairness, resilience, and kindness. Though they didn't have much family beyond each other, their bond was unbreakable. On this particular morning, Maya left home earlier than usual. She wanted to stop by the library before class to return a book she'd finished reading over the weekend. As she walked down the sidewalk, humming softly to herself, she noticed how peaceful everything seemed: the chirping birds, the rustling leaves, and the distant sound of cars starting up. But little did she know, this calmness would soon be shattered. At the same time, Officer Greg Parker was patrolling the neighborhood. Known around the station for his stern demeanor and rigid adherence to rules, Greg often struggled to connect with the community he swore to protect. He believed strongly in maintaining order, but sometimes let his biases cloud his judgment. Today, however, he felt determined to prove himself after receiving criticism from his superiors about his recent behavior during traffic stops. As fate would have it, Greg's patrol route led him past the library just as Maya was heading inside. Something about her caught his attention. Perhaps it was the way she adjusted her backpack or glanced briefly at her phone, but instead of dismissing it as ordinary teenage behavior, Greg decided to follow her. His mind began racing with unfounded suspicions, fueled by stereotypes he hadn't realized he still held onto. Inside the library, Maya browsed through the shelves, searching for another book to borrow. The librarian greeted her warmly. She was a regular visitor here, someone everyone recognized as polite and responsible. Meanwhile, outside, Greg parked his car and entered the building, scanning the area with narrowed eyes. When he spotted Maya flipping through pages near the fiction section, he approached her abruptly. "Excuse me," he said gruffly, startling her. "What are you doing here?" Maya looked up, confused. "I'm returning a book and looking for something new to read," she replied calmly, holding up the novel in her hand. Greg frowned, unconvinced. "Do you have any ID? How do I know this isn't stolen property?" Her heart sank. "Stolen?" She couldn't believe what she was hearing. "No, sir," she stammered. "These are my books. I come here all the time." But Greg wasn't listening. His preconceived notions had already taken root, and without further investigation, he insisted on taking her to the police station for questioning. Despite Maya's protests and the librarian's attempts to intervene, Greg handcuffed her right there in front of everyone, claiming it was procedure. News of the incident spread quickly. Passers-by whispered among themselves, some shaking their heads in disbelief while others recorded videos on their phones. Maya tried to hold back tears, repeating that she hadn't done anything wrong. Deep down, though, fear crept into her heart. Would anyone believe her? Little did Greg realize, his actions were about to set off a chain of events that would not only challenge his own beliefs but also shake the entire city to its core. For now, however, the damage was done and Maya's world had been turned upside down. As Officer Greg Parker escorted Maya out of the library, whispers and stares followed them. People gathered near the entrance, some horrified, others curious, but no one dared to step forward. Maya kept her head down, feeling a mix of shame and anger bubbling inside her. How could this happen? She hadn't done anything wrong. Why was she being treated like a criminal? Greg remained firm, his jaw clenched as he ignored the murmurs around him. "It's just procedure," he muttered under his breath, trying to justify his actions even as doubt began to creep into his mind. But it was too late now. The scene had already drawn attention, and someone in the crowd decided to take matters into their own hands. A young woman named Lisa, who frequented the library for study sessions, pulled out her phone and started recording. "Excuse me, officer," she called out hesitantly. "Can you explain why you're arresting her?" "She's just a kid." Greg shot her an icy glare. "This is police business. Mind your own affairs." His tone was sharp, leaving no room for argument, but Lisa continued filming anyway. Deep down, she felt uneasy about what she was witnessing. Something didn't sit right with her. Meanwhile, Back at City Hall, Angela Johnson was wrapping up a meeting with her team when her phone buzzed loudly on the table. Seeing an unknown number flash across the screen, she excused herself and stepped outside to answer. "Hello," she said, expecting yet another routine call from a concerned citizen or colleague. On the other end of the line, Lisa's voice trembled slightly. "Ma'am, I'm sorry to bother you, but I think you need to see this. Your daughter, she's being taken away by the police." Angela froze, her heart pounding in her chest. "What? Where are you?" she demanded, gripping the phone tightly. Lisa quickly explained the situation, sending the video she'd recorded directly to Angela's email. As soon as the call ended, Angela opened the attachment, her hands shaking as she watched the footage. Her stomach churned with a mixture of rage and disbelief. How dare they treat her daughter this way? Who gave them the right? Without wasting a moment, Angela grabbed her coat and rushed out of the building, instructing her assistant to cancel all her appointments for the day. On her way to the police station, she made several calls, one to her lawyer, another to the chief of police, and a third to a trusted journalist friend. Word needed to get out, not just because this involved her child, but because it highlighted a much bigger issue plaguing the city. At the station, Maya sat nervously on a cold metal bench in the waiting area. Her hands were still cuffed, and tears streamed silently down her face. She tried to stay calm, reminding herself that her mom would come soon. But every passing minute felt like an eternity. Around her, officers went about their duties, barely sparing her a glance. To them, she was just another case. When Angela finally arrived, the sight of her daughter broke her heart. She marched straight to the front desk, demanding answers. "Where's my daughter? What charges are you holding her on?" Her voice carried authority, commanding immediate attention. The officer behind the desk, recognizing Angela instantly, stammered nervously. "Madam Mayor, we weren't aware." "You weren't aware of what?" Angela interrupted sharply. "That my daughter is innocent? That your officer dragged her out of a library without cause? Do you have any idea how unacceptable this is?" Before the officer could respond, Greg appeared from a nearby hallway, looking startled upon seeing Angela. For a brief moment, confusion flickered across his face before realization dawned. He swallowed hard, suddenly realizing the gravity of his mistake. Angela turned to him, her eyes blazing with fury. "You," she said, pointing a finger at him. "You will regret this day. Not only have you wronged my daughter, but you've also disrespected this entire community. Justice will be served." Greg opened his mouth to defend himself, but no words came out. Instead, he glanced at Maya, who sat quietly, watching everything unfold. For the first time, guilt began to weigh heavily on him. Had he misjudged the situation entirely? Unbeknownst to everyone, the journalist Angela had contacted was already en route to the station. By evening, the story would dominate headlines, sparking outrage across the city. Protesters would gather outside the station, demanding accountability. And within hours, Officer Greg Parker's life and career would hang precariously in the balance. But for now, all eyes were on Angela Johnson, a mother fighting not just for her child, but for justice itself. By the time Angela Johnson stepped out of the police station with Maya by her side, the news had already spread like wildfire. Social media platforms were flooded with posts about the incident, and local TV channels interrupted their regular programming to cover the unfolding drama. The hashtag Justice for Maya began trending within minutes, drawing reactions from citizens. Across the city and beyond, Angela kept one arm protectively around Maya as they walked toward their car. Despite her composed exterior, she could feel her daughter trembling beside her. "It's going to be okay," Angela whispered softly, more to reassure herself than anything else. But deep down, she knew this wasn't just about Maya anymore. It was about every child who had ever been unfairly targeted because of the color of their skin or where they came from. Inside the car, Maya finally broke her silence. "Mom, why did he do that?" "I didn't do anything wrong," Angela sighed, gripping the steering wheel tightly. "Some people make assumptions based on things that don't matter, like how someone looks or where they live. But what Officer Parker did today was wrong, and we're going to make sure he understands that." As they drove home, Maya stared out the window, her mind replaying the events of the morning. She couldn't shake off the feeling of those cold handcuffs around her wrists or the judgmental stares from strangers. For the first time in her life, she felt small and powerless. It scared her. Meanwhile, back at the police station, chaos erupted. Chief Harris, a seasoned leader known for his calm demeanor, found himself bombarded with phone calls from angry citizens, concerned politicians, and even higher-ups demanding answers. When he confronted Greg Parker in his office, the tension was palpable. "What were you thinking?" Chief Harris barked, slamming a copy of the viral video onto his desk. "You arrested a child, without probable cause. And not just any child, the mayor's daughter." Greg shifted uncomfortably in his seat, beads of sweat forming on his forehead. "Sir, I saw her acting suspiciously. I followed protocol." "Suspiciously?" Chief Harris repeated incredulously. "She was browsing books in a library. Do you realize the damage you've caused? This isn't just a PR nightmare, it's a breach of trust between the police force and the community." Greg opened his mouth to respond, but quickly closed it again. There was no defense strong enough to justify his actions. He sank lower into his chair, guilt gnawing at him. Perhaps Lisa's recording had been right all along. Maybe he had jumped to conclusions too quickly. Outside the station, a growing crowd of protesters chanted slogans like "No justice, no peace," and "accountability now." Some held signs bearing Maya's name, while others carried banners calling for systemic change. Among them was Lisa, the young woman who had filmed the incident. She stood near the front, holding her phone high above her head so others could see the footage she'd captured. Back at home, Angela tried to shield Maya from the storm brewing outside. She turned off the television and silenced her phone, focusing instead on comforting her daughter. Over dinner, she listened patiently as Maya poured out her feelings, her confusion, her fear, and her frustration. Angela nodded along, offering words of encouragement whenever necessary. "You are strong, Maya," Angela said firmly. "Stronger than anyone who tries to bring you down. We'll get through this together, and when we do, we'll make sure something like this never happens again to you or anyone else." Later that evening, Angela sat alone in her study, drafting a statement to release to the public. She wanted to address the situation head-on, not just as a mother seeking justice for her child, but as a leader committed to fostering equality and fairness in her city. Every word she wrote carried weight, each sentence carefully crafted to inspire action rather than division. As dawn approached, the city remained restless. Reporters camped outside Angela's residence, hoping to catch a glimpse of her or gather exclusive details. Online forums buzzed with debates about racism, policing, and accountability. And somewhere in the midst of it all, Officer Greg Parker lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering if he'd ever regain the respect he'd lost or if he even deserved to. The storm had only just begun, and its impact would ripple far beyond what anyone could have imagined. The next morning, Angela Johnson's statement hit the newsstands and social media feeds like a thunderclap. It was concise yet powerful, calling for accountability while emphasizing unity and reform. "What happened to my daughter is not an isolated incident," she wrote. "It is a symptom of deeper issues within our society, issues that demand immediate attention. We must work together to ensure justice prevails and that no child feels unsafe in their own community." Her words resonated deeply with many, sparking both hope and anger across the city. Supporters praised her courage, while critics accused her of using her position to amplify personal grievances. Regardless of the divided opinions, one thing was clear: Angela had ignited a movement. Meanwhile, Officer Greg Parker reported to work, his heart heavy with dread. The station buzzed with tension as officers whispered among themselves, some defending him quietly while others avoided eye contact altogether. Chief Harris called him into his office once again, this time accompanied by internal affairs investigators. "Greg," Chief Harris began, his tone firm but measured, "you're being placed on administrative leave pending a full investigation. This isn't just about what happened yesterday, it's about restoring public trust." Greg nodded numbly, knowing there was no point in arguing. As he packed up his desk under the watchful eyes of his colleagues, he couldn't help but feel a sense of shame creeping over him. For years, he'd prided himself on being a protector of the law, someone who upheld order. Now, he questioned whether he'd ever truly understood what that meant. Outside the station, the protests grew louder. Maya's classmates joined the crowd, holding signs that read "Stand with Maya" and "End Racial Bias." Teachers from her school addressed the media, vouching for her character and academic excellence. Even strangers came forward with stories of similar experiences, sharing how they too had been unfairly targeted because of their race or appearance. At home, Maya scrolled through her phone, overwhelmed by the outpouring of support. Friends sent messages of encouragement, and hashtags bearing her name filled her social media feed. While part of her appreciated the solidarity, another part wished none of this had happened in the first place. She longed for normalcy, to go back to being just a regular student without the weight of everyone's expectations on her shoulders. Angela noticed her daughter's quiet demeanor during breakfast and decided it was time for a change of pace. "Let's take a break today," she suggested gently. "How about we visit Grandma's garden? Just you and me." Maya hesitated but eventually agreed. Spending time away from the chaos sounded appealing, even if only for a little while. At her grandmother's house, surrounded by blooming flowers and chirping birds, Maya felt a rare moment of peace. Her grandmother, a wise woman in her late 70s, listened intently as Maya shared her feelings. "You know, sweetheart," her grandmother said after a pause, "sometimes bad things happen so good people can stand up and make a difference. Your mom is doing exactly that, not just for you, but for everyone who deserves fairness." Maya thought about those words long after they returned home. Maybe her experience could lead to something bigger, something meaningful. Still, the idea of becoming a symbol for change frightened her. What if she wasn't strong enough? Back at the police station, the investigation into Greg's actions intensified. Internal Affairs reviewed body cam footage, interviewed witnesses, and scrutinized every detail of the case. Meanwhile, Chief Harris held a press conference, promising transparency and assuring the public that justice would be served. His efforts were met with cautious optimism, though many remained skeptical. That evening, Greg sat alone in his apartment, staring blankly at the TV screen. News anchors dissected his actions, analysts debated systemic racism, and citizens voiced their outrage. He realized he couldn't escape the reality of what he'd done or the consequences awaiting him. For the first time in his life, Greg considered stepping away from policing altogether. But where would that leave him? Who was he if not a cop? As night fell over the city, two worlds collided, one filled with hope and determination, led by Angela and Maya, and the other consumed by guilt and uncertainty, embodied by Greg. The battle for justice was far from over, but its ripple effects were undeniable. Lives were changing, and the path ahead promised to test everyone involved. The days following the incident blurred together for Maya and Angela, each moment filled with both progress and challenges. The protests outside the police station continued to grow, drawing national attention. Journalists from across the country descended upon the city, eager to cover what was quickly becoming a landmark case in the fight against racial bias. Angela found herself at the center of it all, a reluctant yet determined figurehead for change. One afternoon, Angela attended a town hall meeting organized by community leaders. The room was packed, buzzing with anticipation as citizens waited to hear what steps would be taken next. When Angela stepped up to the podium, the crowd erupted into applause. She took a deep breath, her eyes scanning the sea of faces before her. "Thank you for standing with us," she began, her voice steady but warm. "This isn't just about my daughter, it's about every person who has faced injustice because of prejudice. Together, we can create meaningful change." She outlined a series of proposals: mandatory anti-bias training for law enforcement officers, increased accountability measures, and the establishment of an independent oversight committee to review cases of misconduct. Her words resonated deeply, earning nods of approval from many in the audience. However, not everyone was convinced. Some skeptics argued that these measures wouldn't go far enough, while others worried they might strain relations between the police and the community further. Meanwhile, Maya struggled to adjust to her newfound visibility. Classmates treated her differently now. Some offered unwavering support, while others kept their distance, unsure how to act around someone suddenly thrust into the spotlight. At school, teachers handled the situation delicately, ensuring Maya felt safe and included. Yet, despite their efforts, she couldn't shake the feeling that life would never quite return to normal. Back at the police station, Officer Greg Parker's investigation reached a critical juncture. Internal Affairs investigators presented their findings to Chief Harris, revealing inconsistencies in Greg's account of events. Body cam footage showed no evidence to support his claims of suspicious behavior on Maya's part. Worse still, witness testimonies painted him as overly aggressive and dismissive during the arrest. Chief Harris called Greg into his office once more. This time, there was no room for leniency. "Greg, based on the evidence, your actions were unjustified. You're suspended indefinitely pending potential legal action." Greg slumped in his chair, the weight of his mistakes pressing down on him. He knew this wasn't just the end of his career, it was the beginning of a long road toward redemption or perhaps irrelevance. That evening, Greg returned home, his mind racing. He poured himself a cup of coffee and sat by the window, staring out at the quiet street below. For the first time, he allowed himself to confront the biases he'd carried for so long. He thought about the people he'd sworn to protect, the very ones he had failed through his actions. Was there any way to make amends? Across town, Angela and Maya spent the evening reflecting on the day's events. They sat together on the couch, flipping through channels until a local news segment caught their attention. It featured interviews with residents discussing the impact of recent protests. One woman, visibly emotional, shared her story of being racially profiled during a traffic stop years ago. Her words struck a chord with Maya. "Mom," Maya said softly, breaking the silence, "do you think things will really change?" Angela hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "Change takes time, sweetheart, but every step forward matters. What happened to you has given us an opportunity to push harder for fairness, not just for ourselves, but for everyone." Maya nodded slowly, absorbing her mother's wisdom. Though uncertainty lingered, she felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, something positive could come from this ordeal. As the night wore on, the city remained restless. Protesters lit candles in front of the police station, holding a peaceful vigil in solidarity with Maya and others who had faced similar injustices. Among them was Lisa, the young woman who had filmed the arrest. She stood quietly, watching the flames dance in the breeze, feeling proud of the role she had played in bringing attention to the issue. In another part of the city, Chief Harris worked late into the night, drafting plans to implement Angela's proposed reforms. He knew the road ahead would be challenging, but he also understood the importance of taking action now. The trust between the police force and the community hung precariously in the balance, and rebuilding it would require effort from everyone involved. By dawn, the city stirred once more, ready to face another day of dialogue, debate, and determination. Lives had been shaken, perspectives shifted, and alliances forged. While the journey toward justice was far from over, one thing was certain: the seeds of change had been planted, and they would continue to grow. As the weeks passed, the city began to settle into a rhythm of reflection and action. The protests gradually shifted from fiery demonstrations to organized community meetings aimed at fostering dialogue between law enforcement and citizens. Angela Johnson remained at the forefront of these efforts, working tirelessly alongside activists, educators, and police reform advocates to implement the changes she had proposed. One evening, Angela hosted a roundtable discussion at City Hall, inviting representatives from various groups, community leaders, officers willing to engage in reform, and even former victims of racial profiling. Maya attended as well, sitting quietly beside her mother. Though still hesitant about being in the spotlight, she understood the importance of what they were doing. During the meeting, an older man named Marcus, who had once been wrongfully detained himself, stood up to speak. His voice trembled with emotion as he recounted his own experience decades ago. "When I was younger, no one listened," he said. "But today, we have a chance to make sure our kids don't go through what we did." His words struck a chord with everyone in the room, including Officer Greg Parker, who had been invited to attend under strict supervision. Chief Harris believed that understanding the harm caused by biased policing might help Greg and others like him begin to heal and change. Sitting in the back corner of the room, Greg listened intently, guilt gnawing at him as story after story unfolded. For Maya, hearing these accounts was both heartbreaking and empowering. She realized she wasn't alone. Countless others had faced similar struggles. After the meeting ended, she approached Marcus shyly and thanked him for sharing his story. He smiled warmly, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You're brave, young lady. Keep standing tall." Greg also made an effort to connect, albeit awkwardly. Approaching Angela after the session, he cleared his throat nervously. "Mayor Johnson, I want to apologize to you and your daughter. What I did was wrong, and I'm truly sorry." Angela studied him carefully, her expression unreadable. Finally, she nodded. "Apologies are a start, but actions matter more. If you're serious about making amends, prove it by supporting real change." Greg swallowed hard, knowing this was only the beginning of earning back trust, if it could even be earned at all. Still, he left the meeting with a renewed sense of purpose. For the first time in years, he felt motivated to do better, not just for himself, but for the community he served. Meanwhile, Maya found solace in small victories. At school, she joined a student-led initiative focused on promoting diversity and inclusion. Through art projects, workshops, and open discussions, students worked together to create a safer, more accepting environment. Her involvement helped her regain some confidence, reminding her that she had a voice worth hearing. Back at the police station, Chief Harris rolled out the first phase of reforms, starting with mandatory anti-bias training sessions for all officers. While some resisted initially, many came away with a deeper understanding of how unconscious prejudices could affect their work. Slowly but surely, cracks in the system began to show signs of repair. One afternoon, Lisa, the woman who had filmed Maya's arrest, visited Angela's office to discuss ways to amplify awareness about systemic racism. Over coffee, the two women brainstormed ideas for campaigns, documentaries, and educational programs. Their partnership symbolized the unity spreading across the city, bridging gaps between different walks of life. Despite the progress, challenges persisted. Some officers pushed back against the reforms, claiming they were unnecessary or unfair. Others argued that focusing solely on race overshadowed other forms of bias. Tensions occasionally flared, requiring patience and persistence to navigate through it all. Angela remained steadfast. She knew lasting change wouldn't happen overnight, but every step forward counted. On quiet evenings, she and Maya would sit together, reflecting on how far they'd come. "We're planting seeds," Angela often said. "Even if we don't see the full garden bloom, we're laying the foundation for future generations." Maya nodded, finding comfort in those words. Though scars remained, she felt stronger than before, a testament to resilience born out of adversity. As the sun set over the city, casting long shadows across its streets, hope lingered in the air. People continued to march, talk, and dream of a better tomorrow. And while the road ahead promised obstacles, the collective spirit of determination ensured that they would face them together. Months had passed since the incident that shook the city, and while wounds were still healing, signs of transformation began to emerge. The protests had evolved into constructive movements, with citizens actively participating in shaping policies and fostering understanding. Angela Johnson's relentless advocacy for reform became a beacon of hope, inspiring not only her community, but also neighboring cities to follow suit. One crisp morning, Maya woke up feeling lighter than she had in months. She glanced out her window, watching sunlight stream through the trees. It was hard to believe how much had changed since that fateful day at the library. Though scars remained both visible and invisible, she felt stronger, more resilient, and ready to embrace the future. At school, Maya delivered a speech during an assembly organized by the diversity initiative she helped lead. Standing on stage, she looked out at her classmates, their faces filled with curiosity and respect. "What happened to me wasn't fair," she began, her voice steady despite the nerves fluttering in her chest. "But it taught me something important. Our voices matter. When we stand together, we can create change." Her words earned thunderous applause, and afterward, several students approached her to express gratitude or share their own experiences. For the first time, Maya realized she wasn't just a victim of injustice, she was a catalyst for progress. Meanwhile, Officer Greg Parker embarked on his own journey of redemption. Suspended indefinitely, he used his time to volunteer at community centers, mentoring youth and learning about cultures different from his own. At first, people eyed him warily, unsure if his efforts were genuine. But over time, his sincerity began to shine through. One evening, while helping coach a local basketball team, he struck up a conversation with Marcus, the man who had spoken so powerfully at the roundtable meeting. "I never thought I'd say this," Marcus admitted, "but I think you're trying." "That counts for something." Greg nodded humbly, grateful for even a sliver of forgiveness. He knew rebuilding trust would take years, but every small gesture brought him closer to becoming the person he aspired to be, a protector rather than a perpetrator. At City Hall, Angela celebrated another milestone, the establishment of the Independent Oversight Committee, tasked with reviewing cases of misconduct within the police force. Its members included representatives from diverse backgrounds, ensuring accountability and transparency. During its inaugural meeting, Chief Harris addressed the group, acknowledging past failures while committing to a brighter future. "We've made mistakes," he said candidly, "but we're committed to doing better. Together, we can build a system that truly serves everyone." The reforms weren't perfect, and challenges persisted. Some officers grumbled about increased scrutiny, while certain segments of the population remained skeptical of lasting change. Yet, incremental improvements gave reason for optimism. Reports of racially motivated incidents declined, and public trust in law enforcement slowly began to rebuild. On a quiet Saturday afternoon, Angela took Maya to the park where they often played when she was younger. As they strolled along the winding paths, Angela placed an arm around her daughter's shoulders. "Look how far we've come, Maya," she said softly. "It hasn't been easy, but you've shown incredible strength." Maya smiled, leaning into her mother's embrace. "I couldn't have done it without you, Mom. You taught me to keep going, no matter what." Their bond had grown stronger through adversity, a testament to resilience forged in the fires of hardship. Though the road ahead promised obstacles, they faced them side by side, united by love and purpose. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting golden hues across the city skyline, Angela stood on her balcony, reflecting on everything that had transpired. She thought of Maya, now confident and courageous, of Greg, striving to make amends, and of countless others working tirelessly for justice. The fight was far from over, but the seeds of change had taken root. In the distance, lights twinkled in homes and businesses, symbolizing lives intertwined by shared struggles and dreams. The city, once divided, now pulsed with renewed energy, a testament to the power of unity and perseverance. And so, under the vast expanse of stars, hope lingered in the air, promising a brighter tomorrow for all who dared to believe in it.